Ugh, people can't. Oh, oh, there's my cat. Hi. Hi. Let's see. I don't even know where to start. Uh, Feeling really pissed, real grumpy. Um, and yeah. So apparently, we have to have a chat about journalism. Um, and I am feeling pretty hopeless about the state of affairs at the moment. The good news is Her Royal Highness is here. There she is, biting the shit out of her claws. I'm tired. What are you guys doing? What's happening? Anything? I know, she's the best. She's the best. Let me see if I can find a picture of her. Let's start with something fun. Let me see if I can find a picture of that little turd when she was a wee babe, just to brighten things up for a minute. Actually, hold on a second. Let me do this. Let me share a few photos of my cat, and then I'm going to bitch. But you know what? I'm not going to bitch. I'm going to chat about journalism and state of affairs. But let me find cute kitty pictures for. Oh, there she is. Look at her. Look at her get in there. Go for it, lady. Just be you. I mean, she's cleaning her butt. I mean, who can't, right? Get their legs above their head. That's my girl. Okay. Let me find a picture of this little sweet babe before she went crazy. So so we're going to, while I'm looking for this, we're going to start with chat about a it was a tweet I saw last week that really pissed me off. And I realized that I was getting pissed off at a person tweeting about a journalist from Boston Magazine who apparently had made this tweeter's shit list because Judge Cannoni had to force them to turn over private information shared between her and Karen Reed. And let me see here if I can find it. Where's my baby? Oh, it's not going to let me load it up. Oh, well, whatever. You see her. She's back there licking her ass. Oh, no, she's not licking her ass. So let me start here. So I'm not sharing this person's Twitter handle because I really honestly don't think people understand what journalism is and is not. And what is worth going to prison for and what a judge orders one to do. In addition to the fact that journalists have no protection, period. I think that there's a lot of myths surrounding that. I'm going to ask people to, and I'm going to go back to some of the questions that people put to me. But then I would, if you all have questions specifically as we go along, just drop a question mark in front of whatever the question is, and I'll try to address it, because it's like with the state of America just circling the drain right now, and journalism getting thrown just further and further under the bus. I feel like I gotta talk a little bit about this. So this is from last week, and somebody posted about the Karen Reed trial and no sanctions. And this was like from some of the, I don't know if it was against Attorney Jackson. They were ruling on some sanctions, etc. And so this concerned citizen put out a tweet about no sanctions but a gag order in the Karen Reed retrial. Plus, this person writes, Gretchen Voss is a despicable rat who should never be referred to as a journalist. Okay. Now, again, I'm going to give this person the benefit of the doubt that they're obviously in the Karen Reed did nothing wrong camp, of which I am the same. I don't think there's any proof that Karen Reed did anything to Officer John O'Keefe. Perhaps this person doesn't understand that that Gretchen Voss was taken to court. That Gretchen Voss's bosses put forth money to challenge this lawsuit to disclose her private notebook. This person, I'm going to assume, doesn't understand that Massachusetts has no shield laws for journalists. I'm going to assume this person doesn't understand that Sullivan versus New York Times, which is the seminal case in defending journalists against libel, is going down in flames. I'm going to assume this person has no idea what the fuck is really going on. So I'm going to give them a little grace by not showing their name. But this really pissed me off. Really pissed me off. Not a little bit because, you know what? Karen Reed is a grown-ass woman with money coming out of her ears that can afford to pay attorneys to defend her in a case she shouldn't have to defend herself in. Let's get clear. She shouldn't have to defend herself in this case because the woman did nothing wrong. The state has no case. They don't. But this person, calling her Gretchen Voss, who writes for Boston Magazine, who does lifestyle pieces. First of all, I wouldn't even necessarily call her a journalist. I call her a lifestyle reporter. Let's not conflate these things. A despicable rat? For what? What exactly? Do you think Gretchen Voss should have gone to prison for what? She's not shielding a whistleblower. What does this person think? I'm real pissed about this. It makes me so mad, especially in Karen Reed's trial. That woman, bless her heart, she has gotten some amazing coverage because she is able to. She was able to consent to an interview with her high-powered LA attorney. So let's get clear. Whoever this person is out there tweeting that Gretchen Voss is a rat, you know who your problem is with? It's with Judge Cannoni. It's with everybody who I have a problem with in Delphi. It's the state. It's not this woman. Do you want to donate to her defense fund? People are going to be real shocked when they realize what journalists really do. And this kind of shit. Do you think that Gretchen Voss wanted to give up her private notebook? Do you think that her attorneys wanted her to do that? Do you think that Boston Magazine wanted her to do that? I watched it. I watched that hearing where she sat in the courtroom and her life was being threatened over this case. Friends, journalists are being murdered. Journalists who are reporting on whistleblowers, who are literally going to jail for sources. This is not one of those situations This wasn't a giving up a source situation. This wasn't a rat situation. They're putting, I'm sick of my fellow journalists being targeted by people who have some sort of idea about what may or may not be true, about their specific cause. I saw this and I'm like, what are you? Take it up with the legislature. Take it up with she's a rat. God, what are you talking about? Ugh. I got to tell you, I wouldn't go to jail for a lifestyle piece that I wrote. I would do exactly what Gretchen Voss did and what her employers did. And that was fight tooth and nail to protect her notebook. She didn't have some sort of secret sauce here. She didn't have some sort of whistleblower sharing information. She didn't turn something over willingly. So make sure, whoever you are, whoever people that think like this, you know what? Take it up with Judge Cannoni, with the Judicial Council in Massachusetts. There is no, I'm taking this down. There is no federal shield law for journalists. People believe somehow, and I don't know if it's because they have some sort of fantasy idea about what it is that journalists actually do. And again, I contend in that case, that is a lifestyle reporter who's still, I'm sure, how much do you think in legal fees? Who can afford to go to jail for a lifestyle report on a woman who's sitting there with her counsel? I would go to jail for whistleblowers. You bet your ass I would. It would be a hardship. And when I was 20, years younger, I couldn't have because I had a kid to feed. So let me back up because that really just, what do you want? What do people want from journalists? What do people actually kind of know? Because I don't think that they do. And so before we move off of Karen Reed, I'm going to say something about Aidan Carney. I don't believe he's a journalist. I don't. I'll defend his right to do whatever the hell he wants to do. And I don't believe, and I think it's a malicious, I don't think that he should be made to pay attorneys to defend him in court. But I don't think he's a journalist. He's a personality, and that's fine. But he doesn't have any special protections either. I don't. So people that think that journalists should go to jail need to figure out what the hell they're talking about. Because we do. We've been murdered. I remember in 2018, I was coming back from Cambodia. It was a reporting trip I was doing as they were kicking out the very last of their free press outlets. And it was in the run-up to an election. And it was the second time I had been there that year. And it was painful to watch because it had been an outlet in Southeast Asia of democracy, so to speak, and free press in Southeast Asia, which has historically not been that sort of beacon in that part of the world. And so it was heartbreaking because the first time I went there in 2000, they were just coming out of the genocide. They were just getting their feet back from that and building up back toward freedom of speech, freedom of press.
In 2018, it all fell apart. And I don't know if anybody remembers this, but Donald Trump had put if you don't think that journalism is political or politics shouldn't be a part of it, then you aren't living in this world. Everything is politics now. It always has been. People just don't want to talk about it. And I'm saying this because it's true. He put there's been an uneasy existence between politicians and journalists. But man, oh man, he gave a lot of heat and light to people that really hate journalists. And I was coming back from the reporting trip, and one of the last outlets, friends of mine who had been reporting from Cambodia were getting arrested. People were having to leave. A lot of people came from Australia to do reporting there. Like it was sort of a natural pipeline. A lot of Australian journalists had to leave and return home. And I came up, again, 2018, I had a stopover in, I don't know, Qatar. And I don't know if anybody remembers that, but some gunman went into the Capital City Gazette in, was it one of the Carolinas, and murdered the newsroom. And I was sitting there in this crappy, Saudi Peninsula, hot as hell airport, having reported on some of the last outlets in Cambodia, to sit, pull up my email and see that journalists had been murdered in the United States. So I just remember feeling like gutted. I don't know. Does anybody remember that? Yep, Charlie Hebdo, you bet. That, all of it. And all of it matters. It's all intertwined. So if you think Cambodian journalism and it's being completely obliterated doesn't matter, it does. When I was in Prague last summer, or whatever it was, I was there doing work. I was there for like a month, and Belarusian journalists, Ukrainian journalists, were in exile because they had been targeted by Russia. As the place I was actually studying, I was doing a course in how law enforcement works with the investigative reporting community in Eastern and Southeastern Europe. And the place that I was working it's called the Seeley Institute, and it's actually funded in part by the American Bar Association. And they do legal and reporting and sort of trainings. But in Prague, and I don't know if anybody checks history, but it's been rough. But anyway, so this place is called the Seeley Institute, and we had been labeled, the Seeley Institute had been labeled an enemy of Russia, along with Bellingcat, with Radio Free Europe, which is funded by the United States, by the way, or had been, probably not now. Voice of America, Radio Free Europe. Much of American diplomacy was carried out through freedom of the press. Like I said, Radio Free Europe, right? VOA, Voice of America. Think about it. Think what you will, but I get really pissed off when people don't understand what is at stake. When you can call, and the luxury to call a Boston Magazine writer a rat because a judge forced her to turn over her notebook. Yeah, Radio for Europe, right? Radio. So I'm just mad. I'm mad. I'm upset. I'm heartbroken. You know, I don't know. I like to think that maybe people, maybe we need to think of a new name for ourselves. Maybe journalists need to think of a new name. Maybe we could call ourselves the kitty cats. People would like us or not want to kill us. I was looking back over the course of a few years, and you know, I had mentioned on here before that, you know, my history in journalism and reporting and just newspaper goes back. My mom even owned a small newspaper in Iowa for years. And so I think, you know, it's a part of who I am just as much as being a farm kid is a part of who I am, you know. And I don't know if people get, it's not just about, there's such a divide between what journalists do and what talking heads do. And so again, when I said something about Aidan Carney, I admire some of the things he does. I think that a lot of his things early on were helpful to bringing to light what is a clear tragedy, right? I mean, I think we can all pretty much say that Norfolk County is a clear disaster. But I think he's also a good example of what happens when you start to put self-interest before public interest. And that's okay. That's what he does, right? But again, I've got no beef with him. I don't consider that necessarily journalism per se when I'm thinking about journalism or from the kind of journalism I come from. So there were, I think, let me see here. There were some questions from the other day. Let me see. What is this? What is this? Oh, yeah. So this is the other thing, too. It's like, you know, I mean, Penn America's out there doing the Lord's work. I mean, all of these people. So one of the things, too, is like, this is from my hometown. Well, my home state in Iowa. In 2019, was it? I don't remember. Andrea Sahouri was a journalist working at the Des Moines Register, and she's now moved on to Detroit, which is where she's from. But it was after the George Floyd, the summer, the protests. Think what you will, I don't care. I'm not here about the opinions. What I'm here about is Andrea was covering the protests in Des Moines, Iowa. And Iowa that year, well, let me step back. She was covering a protest in Des Moines, and she was one of several. This isn't Andrea. This is Katie Aiken, who actually moved on to be a part of another news organization in Iowa. But Andrea was there. She is. So that's Andrea. She She's a cool cat. But anyway, she was arrested. She wasn't just arrested for covering the protests. She was, and I was looking for video of it to pull up for this, and I couldn't find like the full video. But she was arrested, pepper sprayed directly in the eyes, and zip tied and thrown in a paddy wagon, arrested by the Des Moines police. And then all the while screaming, "I'm press, I'm press, I'm press." She was there with her then boyfriend, but also photographer. "I'm press, I'm press, I'm press." And this cop, and I remember watching the footage, this cop, and they were in like full riot gear, right? And there were like 7 Iowans out on this street. And I'm like, okay, Des Moines cops. Full riot gear, tear gas. And they came around, this guy came around the corner at her. And the body cam, the Des Moines Register went to bat for her. And thank God, because they were like, nope, we're not going to let this happen to one of ours. The body cam, this guy, and I imagine this is just like, you know, a Trooper Proctor move, right? Or a Holman move, if you will. Came around the corner of this like Verizon store because they were running at this point. They're running at this point, even though they're like, you know, impress, and we're just here covering this, whatever. Came around the corner, full riot gear, and just grabs Andrea by the arm and sprays her full in the fucking face with pepper spray. And I'm like, and I watched that over and over and over again. And not only did they arrest her, they took her to court. The Polk County, Iowa elected district attorney took her ass to court. How much did that cost the Iowa taxpayers? But what I can tell you is that Andrea got off because, come on now, the Des Moines police were trying to make an example of her. And I watched the trial and I watched some of the streaming of it. And that cop sat up there and lied his ass off. And we were lucky because they got the body cam footage. It's like, yeah, no, that's not what you did. She resisted you? God, I wish they still had the footage up. But it's like, y'all are just sitting here lying. So Andrea got off, and that elected prosecutor, yeah, he lost his election. He lost his election in no small part because of this bullshit. Yep. Cops lie, friends. Cops lie, and they pepper spray journalists. And then, for inexplicable reasons, that year in the United States of America, there was one journalist who was put on trial, and that was Andrea Sahouri in Des Moines, Iowa. I was so embarrassed. Way to go, Iowa. Way to fucking go. And I know Andrea, and I spoke to her, and I met her when I was back a couple times, and Des Moines was just sort of a stopping point for her before she went back to her home, her hometown outside of Detroit. But I think she would have stayed longer. She liked Des Moines. But I think after that, she's like, forget it. I got a better chance in Detroit. But again, do I blame Andrea for being in the streets covering a story that she was there to cover? Am I mad that the Polk County Prosecutor's Office spent money to pursue a case that was so fact-free and never should have? Or am I angry at Andrea for being there? Because that's what they were trying to say. That, oh, well, she was resisting. Oh, she was doing this and that. Journalists have no, I mean, the reason she was saying I'm press was because it's like, holy shit, I hope I'm not getting pepper sprayed because hopefully, but we don't have any special protections. Massachusetts, to go back to Massachusetts, there is no shield law. There is no federal shield law. In 2022, the US Congress came close, but they didn't pass one. Massachusetts has no shield law. There is no protection for a journalist not being forced to testify in a grand jury setting. Yes, you can go to jail, and you bet your ass there's situations where, yes, I would go to jail. Where, yes, you ask any journalist worth a shit and they would go to jail. Because that's just what you do. It's just what you do. But let's get clear. That's not something that everybody can afford to do. I mean, Andrea's lucky. She had the backing of the Register. That should have never gone to trial. It should have never gone to trial. God. This is the editor of the Register, Carol Hunter. This turd. God. This is the asshole right here. Let me see here. Who's this jerk? Carol, Katie, Andrea over there. Andrea's mom. God. Turd. Not a turd. Not a turd. 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 Not a turd. Absolute turd. Absolute turd right there. Who the hell's this guy? Police chief? Nah, he's a turd. This bitch? Yeah, he. Witness? I can't, people. Cannot. Look at this question. Would engaging or participating in a protest be unbiased? Sir, what are you even talking about? Huh? She wasn't First of all, do you even know what you're in this courtroom for? Because we're not talking about a journalist attending a protest. We're talking about a journalist covering it. God, people are just, ugh, so gross. So gross, so terrible. Let me see here. I wanted to see, there were some questions, I think, that let's see. There's good. Okay. There's this is what I imagine DV looks like, this guy. Let's see. Apparently something's burning down next door. So let's look at this. What do people have to say? No, I hate 6% of people hate journalists. That's hilarious. Let me see. What are you guys saying? Abolish I'm with you. Qualified immunity is a joke. Yep. Hey, Polly from Iowa too. Girl, there's so much more for Iowa to be embarrassed about. I mean, I know, right? Bostonian Luton, Ireland. Oh God, Ireland's out there doing the Lord's work in the EU, man. God, love the Irish. This is interesting. No more NDAs. I've got so many thoughts about that too. What happened to the officer who lied? I think he might have failed up. I'm not exactly sure. Oh, the not normal motion. We don't. I wish. But you know what? Okay, so let's talk about Murder Sheet. Because talk about not normal. Talk about not normal, not journalism, barely an attorney? Question mark. First of all, I think I read that right. Question. Okay, let me see. Relationship between journalists and activists. Should they be working against each other and die? Yes. Yes. I try to dox as many people as possible. Honestly, I didn't even know what doxing was until Murder Sheet taught me what it was. I think I said the other day, did I say the other day that good journalism builds on one another, and that journalists can be absolutely biased, because I have such huge bias in my personal life for what is and is not morally acceptable. However, I was talking to Andrea Burkhart, but I'm also an ideal juror, because I'm like, okay, hit me with it. Tell me why I need to change. Tell me why I need to believe what I need to believe here. And this might be unpopular, but if Richard Allen turns out to be guilty and I'm shown something, okay, all right, I can be wrong. If in fact the crash daddies decide that Karen Reed did in fact just drive that beautiful Lexus into Officer O'Keefe, all right. This is people need to understand that sentient beings, sentient thinking human beings that are willing to sit with their mouths shut for a hot second can have bias, but also be objective. Correct? So I will now entertain all your questions about the Murder Sheet and why they're terrible, because let's see here. Boop, boop. I think Judge Jessica. Let's see. Who did lead you? Oh my God. Who's that? Oh, we need voices like mine. Oh, thank you. Melissa, listen, I could scream. My poor husband. I think that I'm trying to hook up with a few other sort of journalists or people that do. And again, it's funny because I think when we talk about journalism, and when I was talking to Andrea Burkhart the other day, a lot of what she was doing, in my opinion, was the work of journalism. Because that's part of it. So much of it is boring. It's sitting around, it's gathering, information. It's waiting. A lot of it is like waiting for information. Right now, I would really love to blow up Murder Sheet's spot right now. But I'm waiting on some more information. But I also think it's coming. And I think that it's not okay to dox. It is okay to call out bad actors in this space. I think that and that's another thing that I said to Andrea Burkhart. She's like, well, what can LawTube do? I'm like, well, you can call it your crappy occupiers of the same space. Like, I don't know, the Prosecutors Podcast, who just go out and full on lie. You've got a guy who denies Sandy Hook happened. Yes. That Brett character. And this other woman who is just an absolute troll right along with him. These are the people, right, that are telling you all of these things. They are the quintessential prosecutors. But I can't say that. I can say they're gross. I can dig up all of the information on them, right? You guys can do a little clickety-clack bang and find out all the truth about those two. But it needs to come from lawyers. I'm comfortable in the space of calling people out because that's my job. I think lawyers on this platform need to get comfortable with calling out lawyers who are actually doing bad work, who are doing bad doing bad dissemination of misinformation. Talk about those Prosecutors Podcast. They're terrible people, like actual terrible people. If you look up, what the hell's his name? Brett Talley. Look him up. Give him a bing. Tell me how you feel about that person after you find out what they said in the wake of all those babies getting shot up in Sandy Hook. Listen, man, that's who you want to get your information from. I've told you who I am. Thrice married high school slut bag who got thrown in the clink for drunk driving. Yeah, but I sure as hell am not. You got to know who you're dealing with. Murder Sheet, the proof is going to be in the pudding for those folks. And what they've done in Delphi is absolutely just lied their faces off. And what I find fascinating about them in particular is that everybody that they have had on from the Delphi defense team, even Captain Habeas himself, who wasn't on the defense team, they've now gone on to just absolutely trash, right? Just trash. They have acquired private information, and I'm sure all of you know that, right? Because some of you in my chat were doxxed by Anya Kane and Kevin Greenlee over the course of a 3-episode arc, because they determined that it was so critical for you to read private information. Kara Weineke? They're coming for Kara Weineke, who just stood up in front of the goddamn Supreme Court of Indiana and just a non-journalist and a barely attorney who isn't fit to clean Miss Weineke's boots? Man, that's a lot of nerve. A lot of nerve, right? And now they're coming out saying that they've been threatened by Reese Davis. Where's your proof? Where is your proof? God, they are so married to this idea that Richard Allen murdered Abby and Libby. And I can't imagine why that would be. Anybody? Does anybody have any idea why that might be? Is it because I sold a book predicated on it? It's like they're just, and you know, another thing that came to my attention, I'm like getting hot. It might be the menopause, it might be the pause. It might be just getting angry. But another thing that I realized is they have trashed, God, they like trashing women who are media moguls, don't they? They took on Ashley Flowers like she doesn't give a shit. You kidding me? Took an Ashley Flowers, tore her apart. I mean, I've got no love for, I don't think that what Ashley Flowers does, I mean, it's certainly more journalism adjacent than what Anya Kane does and Kevin Greenlee do. Who was the other one? God, her sister was murdered. Help me. It was a pot in the day that crap. Who was it that they also had beef with? And it was was it more? No. Damn it. Who the hell is it? You guys remember? Ashley Flowers. Obviously they've got a real boner for, you know, Defense Diaries / all of our crank friends. Does anybody? Yeah, Sarah. There it is. Ding, ding, ding. Yes, they came for her, right? Am I remembering this correctly? Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 They came after her the day of trial, her father's trial. Is that right? Boy, they really care about victims, right? They really care about victims' families. Yeah, look it up. Yeah. Yes. Yes, they did. But boy, they care about victims. You know, just stop it. Gross. Y'all nasty. They keep talking like they're going to finally just leave Delphi alone, right? They're like, don't listen to don't listen to this podcast we're going to do. Right. And then they go on for an hour and a half, like ranting and raving, literally. Like, oh, hang on a second. Hello?
Hey,
What's up?
I saw you call. What's going on?
Hey, girl. All right, I'm going to have to call you back.
Hey.
Let me call you back. I'm in the middle of something.
Oh, okie dokie.
All right. Love you, but that was my kid. Woo! What the hell's I talking about? Oh yeah, dick bags. Yeah, so they came after Sarah, right? Smear episode. So it's like smear episode, hamburgers, murders, Richard Allen, yeah, Keegan Kline. I'm going to read a whole bunch of disgusting CSAM testimony. Burger chef, whatever, something, smear, an entire private chat. What else did they do? It seems like they might have done something else. Seems like they may have a jump at the shark when it comes to trying to bankrupt a private individual by going after them, their livelihood, their reputation, and oh yes, potentially that whole swatting thing that I've been talking about. Yeah, that bad, when people do bad things, right? So when people do bad things, even when people do bad things and and try to take the moral high ground and say that somehow, like with Anya Kane and Kevin Greenlee, that the haram thing, that they're just so above everything and above it all. Well, actually, you're not, because behind the scenes, they have, I mean, it's a pretty well established. Do they not know that there's paper on them, that there's a paper trail in them? Do we think they don't know? I mean, honestly, though, I'm just wondering, because to me, how can they not know? I mean, God knows I've done my level best by sending them emails saying, hey, do you care to comment on an ISP report in which you're listed where a woman and her father were held at gunpoint? Is there anything you'd like to comment on, Kevin Greenlee? I called them. I mean, they have to know, right? ISP. Again, my job is to find out what the hell is going on. Right? Reached out to ISP. And I know that this is like some oblique shit that I'm talking about right now, but essentially everybody knows what I'm talking about. And I'm just like, let me pull it up, actually. Hold on a second here. So some of the let me just go to these questions. So I think talked about a little, goes hand in hand with the use of protection and anonymous sources. Okay, you know what? Let me answer these questions first. Yes. Okay. This is actually really good. So from my YouTube page, I think you've talked about it a little, but this goes hand in hand with the use of and protection of anonymous sources. But I feel many believe only the reporter knows the identity of the source. Are involved in the decision. Okay. So what I can say about this is, in my opinion, right. So not only and I've talked about the use of anonymous sources, and I've actually talked about it particularly in regards to Murder Sheet, because I believe they overuse anonymous sources, and that's a problem. Anonymous sources in and of themselves are not bad at all, and oftentimes anonymous sources turn into sources that will go on the record, and that's how journalism develops. That's how a story develops. So in the case of when I've used anonymous sources, like there's background, which means I don't even mention that I've spoken. Like background informs, let's say I spoke with my cat as my anonymous source, and she gave me some hot goss on the Murder Sheet. And she alleged that they had somebody call in a fake tip to the ISP. All right. Let's just say that she did that. Now, I could guarantee to her in talking to her that I would keep her name out of it. I wouldn't even talk about the fact that she and I spoke about it. But what that would do is it cues me into, okay, who do I need to contact? Well, this anonymous source told me this, and this. My first step, I go and I fact check. So I see, is it true what they're alleging? Is it true that there was a report filed? Yeah. Yes. As a matter of fact, it is true. My cat was right. There was a report filed. Does it list the people that are in question, Anya Kane and Kevin Greenlee? Well, it does. As a matter of fact, it mentions their podcast. Yes. So that checks out. So anyway, you go up the ladder, and then I go and then I start asking and looking for public information. Clickety clack, right? Is there anything on the record for this? Anything on the record? Anything filed? Now, if that anonymous source, my cat, decides she wants to stay anonymous, when I go back to her and say, you know what, is there any way I can get you to talk a little bit more about this? No, but perhaps maybe you want to go talk to this other person. Okay. So this all happens, right? Leading up to a story. This might happen like a year, legit, before a story goes, right? So for me, in the way that I work in the long form investigative journalism, a story can take a year to report. And the cultivation of sources is something that is sacred. And if I tell you you're going to be anonymous, you are going to be anonymous. So when it gets to the point of publication, or when it gets to the point, and I'm coming to the point of like not being the only person to have an anonymous source, when it gets to the point of publication, what will happen and what has happened in my experience, there's two other people involved. So it would be my editor, and say in one case it would be a fact checker, or in another case it might be legal counsel. If I'm working with an outlet that has, an outlet should have legal counsel. So in a case I was reporting, and I've said this before, it was a case out of Kansas City, Missouri. A woman was gang raped, and I was working with an anonymous source within the Independence, Missouri Police Department that did not want to go on the record, but had given me a lot of valuable information. In order to move forward with that information, I had to make the case. I basically had to pitch it within a pitch. So I had to go make the case to my editor, Lori. Lori and I had a long talk about it and trying to figure out how we could move forward without it before we had to try to move forward with this anonymous source information. Then once she was like, okay, I'm willing to hear this out, I had to present to her, this is who it says it is. Here's the steps I've gone through. I've located them on the official website. They are who they say they are with the Independence Police Department. I've been able to follow up through like LinkedIn, whatever. Here's their phone number. Lori, is going to call them. And then it would go through legal counsel. Now, fortunately, and it did. So Lori would have this conversation with my source. Now, in that case, that person did end up talking, and we ended up getting them quoting them, because it turned out it wasn't really that big of a deal to actually go on the record at that point for them. But again, this was a very long process. So this doesn't always happen this way. So when Murder Sheet does it, when they're talking about, we have anonymous sources, well, what flagpole do you run that at? You and Kev just hanging out, chit-chatting? I mean, you two are real reliable brain trust. Come on, man. No, no. So the overuse of anonymous sources, it can be abused, because there's a certain point, is it just somebody else doing voices for you? I mean, I'm not. They had an anonymous mental health worker, right, during the Allen trial that came on, that I found fascinating. And then they had an anonymous former prisoner. They had a bunch of anonymous people, but they're always quoting anonymous sources. And I'm like, yeah, I could quote an anonymous source that I just pulled out of my asshole. Here's my anonymous source. And I think that that's coming home to roost, right? They vibe check, right? Yeah. That's too cool though, right? It can't be vibe check. It's got to be something else. They got to do like an oil check, like the never mind. That's terrible. So anyway, so yeah, typically anonymous sources, if information is used, it's not like that happens in a silo. Let's see here. Just one more way of people. Yeah. Yeah, we aren't like lawyers. So one of the things that was, unfortunately, I do believe the way, going back to the Karen Reed for this kind of question here, is that, oh, thank God you're here, DB. Jesus Christ. Whew. Oil check. Yeah. I did. So attorneys have privilege, right? So work product, unless Murder Sheet gets a hold of it somehow, I'm not saying they did. That was a joke, kind of. But so my notebook is and like with the Karen Reed case, Judge Cannoni we wouldn't know anything that happened behind the scenes in that interview she did with Voss for Boston Magazine, because the deal that was struck at the end of the day when that notebook was turned over was that it would be done in camera, right? So, okay, it's like, all right, well, if you got to look at this, and it's already cost $1 kajillion, and oh, by the way, the reporter's getting death threats, and also the person that wrote that one tweet I was going nuts about in the beginning, there was no contempt on the table, so it's not like she had an opportunity to go to prison or to go to jail, but we don't have any sort of privilege over that. So what we can do is dive on it, like, somebody diving on a grenade to cover it, and protect it. But it's not covered by any privilege in the way that people maybe think that it is. And I think that that's an educational misstep too, is that people believe that somehow because, freedom of the press is in the Constitution, which is hanging on by a thread, but it really doesn't mean what people think it means. It really doesn't. I mean, freedom of the press means that a press exists, right? That it doesn't say freedom of the press to have all of its information kept confidential forever and ever. Amen. That's up to the states. And again, Massachusetts, no shield law, none. So yeah, our notebooks, we can be compelled to testify. We can, and this idea that just people can go to jail protecting, again, it's just, it's a lot more complex than that. I mean, that maybe was true in a world where people worked for places that had deep pockets and weren't all basically a conglomerate, right? I mean, that's just not the way things go anymore. But that doesn't mean that journalists aren't out there fighting every day. I just don't like the idea of the Boston Magazine article being the sort of, the torchbearer for that. So one other thing to keep your eyes peeled for is anti-SLAPP laws have been, a lot of places do have anti-SLAPP. I'm not sure what's going to be happening with those. I want to talk to, I think Andrea and I, again, might talk about that a little bit. I want to, and I'll probably end up talking to, there's some press organizations like PEN America. There's the First Amendment Center. Columbia Journalism School has a really good legal department that does work that tries to help journalists if they're in a pinch. So there are mechanisms that can be in place to help journalists, but anti-SLAPP is I just have a feeling that's going down. And that was, I believe, could have been one of our, a good tool that we could have. But I think that it's probably not gonna make it, just because the current president wants to remove it. And that's a problem. That is a problem. Sullivan. So let me talk about Sullivan for a minute. So Sullivan versus New York Times is sort of the seminal case about libel and setting that standard for being able to challenge the press. And I think is it Gorsuch and Thomas, Justice Thomas, have both expressed just giddy interest in taking that down. And there's actually a case right now, and I'll have to double check. I have to go back and check. Is there an anti-SLAPP laws? Question mark. No more equal rights and equal less. Asking for a friend. So Sullivan is. I don't even know how they got to Sullivan in Nevada, but there was a case challenging Sullivan in Nevada filed in Nevada Supreme Court this year by Steve Wynn. And if anybody doesn't know who Steve Wynn is, he's the guy, he's the casino guy, right? So he's like got just boatloads of money. And from what I could gather, and I have to have an actual lawyer look at it because I just kind of got crestfallen reading through it, is that apparently there were some allegations against him for misconduct. I don't know if it was sexual misconduct or something, but I'm sure it probably was. Going back years. So it doesn't even seem like it was germane to this current filing. But anyway, somehow, so what you have is basically a multimillionaire casino owner who is able to challenge, just fully straight up challenge a precedential case, by claiming that he was defamed years ago. And again, I have to have somebody look at it for me. But that people need to be aware of that and tap into that and understand that is something that's coming. And again, I gotta look at it again, but there's been just like a landslide of shit. That's hilarious. Challenge, timeline, challenge. I don't know. Let's see. I mean, I would hope so, right? A journalist who uses anonymous sources will have a very hard time building or maintaining credibility with the public. I would say so, unless their anonymous sources provide them with concrete, like actual evidence. And even then, there has to be some way of verifying. There is a verification that needs to happen. What is this? Anti-SLAPP laws ever weaponized? Let me think about that. Anti-SLAPP, I don't know. Anti-SLAPP's weaponized. What I would say is anti-SLAPP is typically used to dismiss a frivolous lawsuit that is directed to chill free speech. So I think historically, anti-SLAPP has been on the side of the quote little guy, but I do believe that, and this is a deep pull, but hear me out. Years ago, there was a thing called the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, and it was called RFRA, RFRA. And the Religious Freedom Restoration Act was a piece of legislation that everybody came together on. I mean, we're talking about the left, the right, we're talking about the ACLU and Southern Poverty Law Center and all the wacko right-wing, conservative, and this is going back a couple decades. And it grew out of a law or a lawsuit over the Native American use of peyote for their ceremonies. And it was saying that, this is part of our sacred ceremonies. And it's challenging that or arresting us for using peyote it impinges on our freedom of religion. And so everybody got down with that, right? Everybody was like, cool, okay, we're going to do the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. And what this was, it seemed like at the time, a good idea because it was designed as a shield, right? So a law can be a sword, can be a shield. And at the time when this RFRA was plowing its way through the legislature, when was that exactly? Damn it. Let's see, when did the RFRAs go? And this is a federal one. States had started doing them. RFRA, RFRA, Fed. God damn, was it 93? Woo! All right. So it was grounded in it was grounded in a good idea. But what happened was with the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, first of all, religious freedom didn't need to be restored. People just needed to stop criminalizing peyote, for ceremonial use. So it didn't need to be protected or restored, but because everybody was, gung-ho on this piece of legislation that they thought was going to go a ways in protecting actual religious freedom, what RFRA ended up doing is coming back on a state level that came after. So I'm going to go back to Iowa because, God damn it, Iowa at one point, I don't think that this passed, but several years ago, they were, in light of a new RFRA law, like a state level RFRA law, they were trying to make it so landlords could discriminate against single mothers because harlots, right? We don't want no harlot living in our place. So they were going to make it so landlords could discriminate against single mothers. Now, that didn't go anywhere, but years later, they did manage to pass a similar red line bill that would allow all kinds of discrimination based on a religious belief, because that's what the argument was. And again, this is going back to probably 2010, and when this was happening in Iowa, was that it was a moral outrage that there were these single mothers. Okay. I mean, I was a single mom. You can blow it out your ass, Iowa. I was a single mom in Iowa. Anyway, but so back to the anti-SLAPP thing. I think the anti-SLAPP started was a good thing because there was targeted lawsuits that were seeking to chill speech or seeking to curb people from participating in the public square, right? But now I think that that's going to get turned on its head, much like RFRA did, and I'm kind of concerned about that. But what I think I argue is that the copyright strike is the poor man's SLAPP, which is why I got really pissed off when Murder Sheet and Hidden True Crime were copyrights, striking small creators. It's like, get over it, jerks. Stupid. Yeah, so that to me was malicious copyright striking. And unfortunately, there were enough people that were challenging it. And I think Joe Schmo, right? He had some success, right? Wait, do you mean me, Andy? I don't know which Andy you're talking about. There's so many Andys and Andreas all of a sudden. I am a Jezebel as well. Yes. Let's see. Chicken on a stick. I don't know what that's all about, but okay. Let's see. I'm just going to post random stuff. Right. PTL. Laura, you're from Iowa? Laura, are you an Iowan? We should have like a little get together, a little Iowa get together. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. Do. Yes, girl. Yes. Uh-huh. Yeah. So I think you're talking about RFRA. Yeah. So it was a really weird, it's a really weird group, really strange bedfellows, really a bad idea, RFRA. But here we are. What did I do this live for again? I can't remember. I haven't eaten there in 20 years. Oh, I know what you're talking about. Right. If they had a channel for, yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I'm absolutely with you, and I think that even worse, right? I mean, if you are a lawyer, as in the case of Kevin and Anya, shouldn't that be something that, so so let's just say that you're a lawyer from Indiana that is copyright striking left, right, and center, willy-nilly. And let's say that you're also an Indiana lawyer who is filing claims against a person's professional license, making asinine, erratic, stupid, easily disprovable statements. Or what if you call in to your friend at ISP a fake threat? I mean, I don't know. It seems like making copyright strikes is the least of your concern, right? What else was I supposed to do? I'm very tired now. Very tired, very sad. My cat. Oh, Twitter. So has it gone down forever? Because I'm on Blue Sky. I'm on Blue Sky. I'm here now, I guess. It's back. So yeah. Listen, I just want to go on record saying that I love Canada. And I love me some Mexico. Justin Trudeau, think about him what you will. He's still cute. He's still real cute. What else? What else do you want to know? What else can I do you for? You want to learn some Czech? Would you like to learn some Czech? Maybe later? Wait. Girl, what are you doing? You're nuts. Stop with, no, thank you. But my God, it's embarrassing. Yeah. Justin. Have you seen the Czech president though? Stand by. Damn it. One moment, please. I'm Czech, so I'm sorry. I'm also Czech. I'm a citizen. Look at this. Huh? Y'all. Meow. Ooh. Ooh. Makes me want to stick my leg behind my head like my cat was. Right? Meow. Right? I mean, yeah. Petra Pavel. Yo. Meowski. There he is. He was also, give you a little background on this cutie pie. He was a NATO commander for no, I'm sorry. He was a UN. Was he with the UN when former Yugoslavia? So I'm sure everybody remembers the genocide in Srebrenica. And he was in the army at that point. You should see him in a uniform. Spank bank. Yes, my husband knows this too. He monitors my Instagram because I will every once in a while just post pictures of the Czech president just to see if my husband's paying attention. But my husband is a fox too, so you know. But yeah, my God, there he is. And he the Czechs. Oh wait. Sorry. Just let me live for a minute, guys.
Vnímal především jako službu. I v druhém roce svého mandátu jsem se snažil tuto službu vykonávat nejlépe, jak umím. Ne tak, aby se všem zalíbil, ale tak, jak to považuji za správné. Na svých cestách po naší zemi vnímám, že realita je často mnohem pozitivnější, než jak ji známe z médií a sociálních sítí. Jsem hrdý na to, že naše republika má mnoho schopných a úspěšných lidí, kteří se dokážou postavit za hodnoty svobody, spravedlnosti a solidarity, když je to potřeba. A že je také mnoho témat, na kterých se jako společnost dokážeme shodnout. Toho si opravdu moc vážím. Čekají nás náročné časy. Svět, který jsme znali, se velmi rychle mění. Ale věřím, že právě v čase rostoucí nejistoty a obav dokážeme stát při sobě a že najdeme společnou cestu, jak tímto obdobím projít bezpečně a se ctí. Abychom i nadále žili v sebevědomé, bezpečné a prosperující zemi. Sám proto v následujících letech udělám všechno, co bude v mých silách.
I gotta go. I mean, listen, I can't. Já mluvím česky, jo. Moje prezidentský dne Petr Pavel. Okay. Maybe I'm just hungry. Yes. What is this? Yeah. Okay. So he did come to Iowa once. All right. Listen, he did. Jo, jenom trochu. Jo, mluvím česky jenom trochu. Jo. Ano, jo, jsem český Američanka, já. To moje kočka. Jo, to je mi maminka. Maminku, mi kočky z domu. Nebo jste. Jo, jenom trochu, ne moc dobře. Jo. Yo, no translation. Okay. I don't think I'm old enough. Right. No, I was talking about my cat. Moja kočka. Jo. Maminka. Jo. To dvoje. Maminka o moja kočka. Jo, Leoš. Jo. Je tiger. Domu tiger. What else can I tell you? Co to je zvířata domu. So hezký, toro. Já ten is a kočku domu. Jo. Já jím atunak. Jo jím mléko. Jo jí mléko, atunak, kapre. Yeah. So my cat likes to drink milk and eat caper or eat carp and tuna. And she is also the basically owns our house. Does that help? Anyway. So yeah. So when I do fly the coop and end up having to go back to ye old homeland, y'all are welcome. You can come to the palace. come to the Czech in Prague if it's in fact still standing after everything going on. Okay, so what's going on this week? Do we know? Are you Czech too? No. Where's my Czechs are the best. Czechs have a saying, and this will come as no surprise. Se noviny pas, jo? Jsem Češka, Američanka. Okay, so Czechs have a phrase, and I think that this will not come as a shock to anybody who now has been following me for a while. When a Czech sees a neighbor who has a goat, the Czech does not want the goat for themselves. They want their neighbor's goat to die. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. That's funny. Come for the dumplings, stay for the dubious witticisms. So this week I am hopefully going to finalize. I'm doing a couple of interviews with some special folks behind the scenes to put together hopefully the final swatting story. Then there is a fellow former Iowan, and the Iowans in the chat, you know, Reka Basu, yeah, from Des Moines Register. Her son, Roman Borsellino, he worked on like whatever. He's great. He's like doing some journalism, kind of trying some stuff, but he worked for what's his name? Shit. Kumar, Harold and Kumar, who worked for Obama. What's his fucking name? Son of a bitch. Anyway, we're going to talk Indian stuff because my husband's Indian, but he's also Iowan. And we've got a lot to say about Iowans, Indians, and the death of journalism in Iowa. And he's also very funny. And he wrote for Lily Singh later with Lily Singh. Going to be talking with him. And then trying to hook up with Maggie Zingman, who's Brittany's mom, who also, again, her father, I posted it earlier, her father argued the Supreme Court case of Brandsburg v. Hayes, which is one of my faves. And what else? I don't know. Is there something going on in, yes, Maggie, Cal Penn. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so he worked with him. He was involved. So anyway, whatever. We'll see if I can force his hand into doing that. But Maggie is amazing. Her family is amazing. The story is amazing, not in a good way, but the story of her family, she's something else. And she has such a great perspective as a trauma clinical psychologist, and but also as she calls herself, homicide mom. But she also knows about working in prison systems and what is and is not torture, hidden true crime. So I'm trying to get something set up with her. I have a whole thing I have to edit that she and I did a while back, but I really want to bring her on because I think that you guys would love her. And what else? What else is going on? Agree. It's sad. It's infuriating. Turn DB, that place you have down here where you stuff all of your sadness, all of your childhood trauma. Maybe I'm speaking for myself, but you shove it all down here. Just shove it all down there, that sadness, and then it comes out as fire. And she is done pulling punches. She's funny, she's smart, she's passionate, and she and I have become friends. And I would do just about anything I could for Maggie. Let's see, what else? What else I mean, I don't know. Was this helpful? Was this just dumb? Was this just an old lady screaming? You know, it's like The Simpsons, the little old man screaming. That's me. It's just a little old lady screaming. It's is he not? He's not 91. Is he 91? God. Oh, Iowa. Mm-hmm. Lots of checks in Iowa. I guess that's the problem. Fun fact, Czech and Ukrainian sound similar. Yeah, they sure do. Well, I mean, it's Slavic, right? Oh, yeah. Tak, 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 tak. Yo, I know. Understood. Yeah. So there is some crossover, right? It's a Slavic language. So I was reading out loud in Czech the other day. It was actually some of the stuff that was from the, and maybe this is actually in retrospect, wow, my husband told me this, but it was some of the stuff that was the president of Czech Republic was saying. And I like to read out loud so I can hear myself speak because I am not fluent. My family was that because because Bohemia was always occupied by some imperialist power or Nazi power. They took the Czech language from them. So by the time my grandparents and, my family came over in the 20s, the Czech language hadn't made a huge comeback. So they were stuck speaking what's called like a Low German. So I'm relearning Czech. My grandmother spoke Czech, but not to so my father and my aunt and uncle all spoke German at home. And so it was funny. My dad, when we went back to anyway, that's a whole other kettle of fish. But the Czech language, I try to read it out loud. What the hell? What? Did you see that? Oh my God, that was hilarious. Bitch got something in her ass. No, I don't think it's a fly. I think it's she sees shadows. It's that time of day, and so there's like shadows over there. And so now, oh God. That's hilarious. I was reading Czech out loud, and I said to my husband, I said, do you find Czech to be an ugly language, or does it bother you? And he paused for a really long time. He's like, well, but now I realized I was reading from, I had pulled up a picture of President Pavel and was reading his speech out loud. So that's actually probably what it was. Okay. I'm going to go. So I do have a question. Seriously. I don't think that I'm going to do like the membership thing. Like there's because I don't think that, I don't know. Do people have a feeling about that? I don't, I guess maybe if I do, I don't know. I have a problem with like doing memberships or paid memberships because I don't feel like I can really keep up on things well enough to make people feel like they get value. And I'm not devaluing what I do. Let's be clear. But I don't know if this is the right kind of model, because it's like you can turn on like the super chats, and people have been super chatting me, which is just stop it. Stop. So I don't think I'm going to do that because it feels weird. But I don't know. I'd be interested to hear what other people do. I don't know. Again, I'm still trying to figure all this out. But I'm hoping that we get some information. Does anybody know if anything's coming out for Delphi? Anything? Do we know? I don't know. Karen Reed is off this week. So I'm just going to do, I'm just going to dig into the story I'm trying to finish for you all on the swatting. And that's it. So I think that's it. So I'm going to go and do some worky work and have a snack, because I think as hot as President Pavel is, I think I'm hungry. I think I might be hungry. And I got to go entertain my cat. And I do have to do some actual work. Snack and nap. Now I kind of work. It's funny because the work that I do, it's not so much in journalism right now, but it's investigation. So I'm investigating. Actually, it's interesting. Maybe you guys would be interested in this. I'm investigating a cult. It's actually, oh God, for some people, but it's actually like a Ponzi scheme. Anybody? Maybe. Okay. Well, yes. Okay. All right. Yeah. I'll give you, so look up Twin Ray. And not that one. Not the, sorry. There's not the one that's been on Netflix and all of that. It's out in Portland, I believe, or Ashland, Oregon, not Twin Ray. It is a cult though, but it's actually kind of more of a Ponzi scheme. So I've been investigating like all the boring financial stuff for a client. But I would love to talk about that because it's fucking bad shit. It's nuts. So maybe we can talk about that. Not Twin Flames, no. Yes, an MLM, but it's also like a they're called Twin Ray, not Twin Flame. So I know what you're talking about. Actually, I'll show you. I'll take 2 seconds. I'll show you. Twin. Let me see. Oh, here we go. Right. Ooh. What could possibly go wrong with this, right? What could possibly go wrong? Okay. You know what? What makes you say this? Because you're not necessarily wrong. Yeah. Interesting. Oh my God. Okay. So I'm going to have to put together something because you all seem to be kind of, yeah. Okay. Ooh. I mean, right? You're like, it's a client of mine that I'm working, and this is actually the least disturbing part of, well, you know what? It's pretty disturbing. But it's international. There's a lot of financial issues. There's a Ponzi scheme. There's promises of curing cancer. And I have a real problem with people trying to tell the dying that they can cure cancer. So yeah. So anyway, I'm putting together it's work. But they've been actually on, I can tell you stories about all these folks. Yeah. This person actually does not exist. This woman does, but checkered past. Not sure this one's new. But anyway, so if you're interested, we could talk about these folks because they are problematic. And it's not just from a wacky sort of cult perspective. That's certainly a problem. But there's some real financial issues and financial crimes going on. And again, trying to sell fake cancer cures in addition to other stuff. So if you're interested, we can talk about that at some point. I don't know. Okay. Yeah, and the thing is, it's sort of like it's like Nexium without all of the well, you know what? It's like Nexium without the sex trafficking so far. I haven't found sex trafficking. It's mostly just trafficking in fake goods and fake medicine, which is reprehensible. And has already got, well, anyway, we could talk about it. So yes, it is also that. Yeah. Correct. So we can talk about that. The sex part is it's the drugging people against their will part. It's not great, but we'll have to figure out a time. So if people are interested in that, drop me a little notey poo. Yeah. Anyway, so we can talk about that too. I'm just thinking of what other interesting things we can talk about. Because that's a real problem. Okay. But I think that's it for now. So what else? Anybody? All right. Well, thanks for hanging out. Things kind of went off the rails, but I have very few plans when I do these things. So hopefully there was a nugget of value somewhere in there. But yeah. So just remember that I hate all of you the least. Okay. Hate all of you the least.